You ever have a moment where something just clicks and you realize you're not here to play small? That's the energy we're bringing this season. Welcome to Taboo Talks with Crystal, where we get honest about the messy middle of healing, rising, and rewriting the rules. Each week, we dive into real conversations around healing, leadership, identity, and choosing to live on your own terms. No filters, no performance positivity, just truth, tools, and a whole lot of permission to take up space. Whether it's just you and me today, or I'm joined by a guest who's been through the fire and found purpose on the other side, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Angie, thank you so much for joining us today and for opening up and sharing your story. Can you start by telling us what led you to recognize your struggle with sex addiction and how did that impact your relationships and your sense of self?
Excellent question. And as you know, when it comes to any type of addiction, there's various parameters around that. For some people, it's the intimacy avoidance side that falls under that same addiction, which is sometimes a little bit misleading because some people think, oh, well, if you've done this type of 12-step program before, then you just must be crazy and wild and just out there all the time. But in my instance, it was completely a different situation. So what I came to realize after two failed marriages was that I was truly just not emotionally available. And going through that process, learning about those challenges about myself, it got to a point where I was just very frustrated. I was like, my dating life sucks. I don't have a best friend. I don't have all of these other pieces to the puzzle. And I was talking to a trusted coworker about it. And I'm like, there should be a 12-step program for this. And she got real quiet with me. And she's like, there is. And maybe you should go. And I was shocked. At first, I completely dismissed her, thought, oh, there's no way there's a real thing for this. This can't be. And started doing research and found Sex Addicts Anonymous, learned all about the whole entire process, learned about the 12 steps, followed the 12 steps, and then really started to dive in deeper about where the addiction really came from, and that it wasn't necessarily the acting out portion of it wasn't necessarily, it was more of a result of where the true issue lies, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it was really that moment of just absolute utter frustration that I was like, okay, I need to do something about this.
So help me understand what made you say this is an addiction. Like there's something more than
No, that excellent point. So it's with any addiction. The very first thing that you say is that my life has become unmanageable, and that you don't have control, or you're not in control of what's going on around you. And when you look at your life and you realize, okay, it's been failed marriage or failed relationships, well, there must be a common denominator, and the common denominator was me. And so in that, it was a situation of, okay, well, why am I the common denominator? Well, I'm the common denominator because I'm focusing on physical connection rather than emotional connection. I'm the common denominator because I'm rejecting commitment. I'm the common denominator because of all of these other pieces. And why is it an addiction? Because I'm avoiding real intimacy. And so if you're constantly chasing, in the example of, say, someone that is an alcoholic, well, they're constantly chasing their next drink, right? If they're, say in Narcotics Anonymous or something like that, they're chasing their next high. It's no different for the other side. It just may be a different kind of high. So in this case, it may be the dopamine chase. So it's easier to maybe have a new relationship and it's all great in the beginning, and then it starts to get boring and you're like, I'm done here. Or, again, so it's what are you chasing? And then that's when you determine, okay, this now falls into my life is unmanageable. I clearly need help. Reach out to, other people to find that focus for myself, and of course trust in my higher power.
So, what are some common misconceptions about sex addiction, and
Yes.
how can we help to destigmatize it?
Right. No, great question. And again, so I think one of the biggest common misconceptions is that it's just people out there just having crazy unprotected sex. They think it's that they are nymphomaniacs, or they think there is um, a, an addiction necessarily to the actual physical act of having sex, when it may not have anything to do with that whatsoever. In some instances, it's a porn addiction. In some instances, it's just a chase the next relationship addiction. And so in those pieces to that puzzle, I think that's where a lot of people get a misconception that when they hear the term Sex Addicts Anonymous, they think it's just strictly just you're addicted to sex, and that may not be the case at all. So there are different types of fellowships out there all across the United States. There's sex and love addiction 12 step. There is CODA, codependent 12-step programs, as well as Sex Addicts Anonymous. And I think that the deal there with that is you just have to find the one that's close to you, that has a strong support system, that can help guide you through the process. And I also would suggest that you get with the therapist, because there's probably some things in your childhood that have been the catalyst of this. And for my own journey, it was very much how much I was alone prior in my early development years. And
Mm.
I didn't have hugs. I didn't have someone tell me they loved me or were proud of me or things like that. So for me, I thought that love, affection, and your self-worth was tied to what you do for someone, rather than just being born, than just being inherently born. And so when you tie that back to this type of addiction, it's, well, then you have to perform. So it's, you have to use your body as a way of getting acceptance, or use some sort of leverage where you can feel wanted and needed, and have that type of life where you feel like you belong.
And there's so much shame, layers and layers of shame, I would imagine, that
Yes, yes.
are a pervasive part of addiction. How did you navigate and work through the layers of shame during your recovery process?
That was probably the most daunting part. So I had never been in 12 step anything when I decided to take this journey. And I still remember that first day walking in to the room. It was a women's only meeting, and there were 8 women in the room. And I walked in going, I have to bare my soul to these people, and I don't even know if they have their lives together, or if they're just as messed up in the head as I am. So you walk in and you see some people that are put together. They just either came from church or came from work or whatever, and you're just sitting there and you feel completely naked in front of everyone. Like, oh my gosh, I have to share this. It's like the the saying where people say, before you die, your life flashes before your eyes. Exact same scenario. Exact same scenario. You go through and you're just like, wow, you just, things you had not even thought of in years, because it's just like all the other addictions. It builds on itself. So you may act out first just by chasing, some people, it's watching a little bit of porn here, a little bit of porn there, and then they're watching porn all the time, and now they're losing their job because they're too busy doing that. Or they're chasing, they're having multiple relationships going on at the time, or they're cheating, or they're acting out, or in some instances, some people go out as far as becoming strippers or escorts or prostitutes, because they're chasing that physical connection. So, tying all of this back to the shame, when you realize you need help, then you also realize that you have to tell somebody what you did, who you hurt, and you can't get past this without being willing to do that.
Yeah. In recovery, you have talked about learning to distinguish genuine connection from filling a void. And
Mhm.
I think that kind of ties into, the shame and going back to the childhood. How did your view of intimacy evolve as you kind of went through your journey?
Well, I would say it's still evolving. I would not say that I don't think this is anything that you ever stop doing. I think it's obviously it looks different as you go through your journey. It's different for I think people that go through the SAA program versus like Alcoholics Anonymous. It makes sense. Okay, you're never going to drink again. But when it comes to intimacy, you're not going to go your whole life without receiving a hug. Everyone wants a partner in life. And so defining intimacy really had to come in first with my intimacy with myself, accepting who I am, um, that I do have worth and value, inherently outside of what I do for other people. Um, and then having value for that, that um, I'm not willing to sacrifice, that I'm not willing to bargain or barter, or it's that no, I truly have worth, and know that the trust that I place in my higher power, He's going to guide me through the decisions that need to be made for real intimacy. And so a lot of that came back to, well, what didn't I have as a child, and what do I crave, and what do I value, and making those lists, and then seeing true actions of that out with other people, whether it's my friends that are maybe married, or um, just other random acts that give the same emotion and sentiment without it being physical or in a way where you're chasing a dopamine high.
Which kind of leads into my next question about boundaries. Boundaries are so important, right? How do
Yeah.
you approach boundaries now in your personal and your professional life?
That's excellent question. So in 12-step recovery, if anyone's ever done it, you're probably familiar with the three circles: your inner circle, your middle circle, and your outer circle. And you defined behaviors that are in your inner circle that may make you want to act out in whatever act out way is for you in the challenge that you're facing. So it changes as you're going through your recovery. Some things may not be relevant anymore. So for me, the boundaries that I set was, for a year, I didn't date. I didn't go out with anyone. I got clean everywhere, any way that you can say it. And I just prioritized friendships versus trying to find, that next physical connection. Excuse me. And then there's boundaries beyond that. So it's setting rules in place. I don't know if you've ever listened to Steve Harvey, who's like a comedian. He's a great guy. He has a great book. I think it's called Think Like a Man, Act Like a Woman. And in his book, he actually recommends for every single woman on the planet to wait 90 days before they get intimate with a man. And to hear another man say something like that, that's pretty profound. And I don't think growing up I ever heard that from anyone. That was definitely not the sentiment that was communicated to me when I decided, or when I grew up and started dating and things like that. So that's a really big boundary, is putting things in place that make sense, having conversations with trusted individuals that know the journey and know whether it's I'm being truthful and authentic and vulnerable, or if it looks like I'm sliding into a into a darker situation where it's again just chasing a dopamine high. But yeah, so and then the outer circle behaviors are basically the things that keep you sober. So whether it's certain types of music that you listen to that keeps you closer to your higher power, or going to church if that's a thing for you, or even just going to 12-step meetings, sponsoring, volunteering, being in leadership, stuff like that just keeps you tapped into the program, so you stay top of mind. Now it's been a bit since I've done this at this point, and I don't go to meetings like every week like some folks have to because of just how, the nature of their addiction. But it's definitely something where I do a gut check and make sure that I'm good and I'm staying in the right frame of mind. Because if not, then I need to check it in. I need to be in the room with those people that have faced similar challenges that can call me out on my BS if I'm lying to myself.
Yeah, that's so important. So, for anyone listening right now who can recognize themselves in your story, whether they're struggling with similar patterns or feeling stuck, what are the first steps that they can take to begin their own healing?
Yes. So first steps would be just admit that there's a problem. I mean, that's the huge thing. That's, in my opinion, it's the hardest thing. The second would be find resources quickly. You don't want to wait. You don't want to say, I'll deal with this tomorrow. Well, tomorrow never comes until you're ready to actually face the demons that you have. And so getting in touch with there's a national website specifically for Sex Addicts Anonymous that you can go to, and it'll help you find a local place near you. If you don't find something that's near you, there are some of the fellowships that are actually hybrid or fully virtual. So there's really no excuse, thank you, COVID, for that, that we can't find resources online. There's in the Central Florida area, there's a daily phone call that happens every morning. And so you can just check in there and just have the opportunity. It's not as great as an actual meeting because that's more formal, but there's definitely resources. And then finally, finding a therapist or a mental health counselor or something along those lines that is familiar with that type of addiction. And I have to say that very clear because I've seen friends that have had similar challenges, and they went to a mental health counselor that had experienced an addiction, but not specifically their type of addiction. And it's not, well, 12 step is, yes, all the same. There's a different level of layers of emotion that can go behind one versus the other, that if they've had experience, they'll be able to help guide you in your recovery plan so much better. And then get a sponsor. Sponsors, get a good sponsor. Don't be afraid to fire your sponsor. That is a huge element that I wished I would have had someone tell me early on, is that it's okay to say, this isn't working out and I'm not getting what I need, and I think I need to find another sponsor. That's okay. That
Right.
is definitely something that I wish was spoken up and out about more when it comes to any type of addiction with regards to that.
Or any type of professional. I want
Yes.
to point out mental health professional. You're
Consultants, doesn't matter. All of them. Fire
exactly.
them. If they're not working, fire them. Yes.
One of my favorite sayings is I never lose. I win or I learn. So,
Yes.
what has been your biggest learning experience so far? And what is a lesson that you would like our listeners to take away from that?
Yeah. So for me, I always thought that success really was measured by how much money you have in the bank or what your life looks like on social media. Um, or the title that you have or things like that, and it really isn't. It really comes down to how happy you are with yourself, because you spend the most time with yourself. And if you're not happy, then wake up and do something about it. Whether it's an addiction that you're ignoring, it's just something you're just dissatisfied with. Maybe it's weight or relationships or just whatever it is that doesn't bring you joy. Deal with it, no matter how ugly it gets, because it's going to be hard. And you can either say, hey, in a year from now, I'm going to be exactly how I am today. And if you can't say that truthfully, then whatever it is that you're not happy about today and you don't want to be living a year from now, do something about it today. Don't wait.
Such great advice. Awesome advice. Thank you. Angie, thank you so much for your courage, for opening up, for being here and sharing your story with us. Is there anything else that you haven't shared yet that you would like to before we close out?
Sure. I would say, like most addictions, no one had, no, there's no type. There's no one looks the same. Everybody has a different background. Um, so don't judge. That's the biggest thing is don't judge. And because that doesn't help the process. I think that was one of the things when I went into the room, you try to figure out like, whoa, what's their addiction? What are they in here for? and and you can't judge. Everyone has a different story. Mine included domestic abuse with it, and again, I was a PTA mom. No one would have guessed, that about me or on the outside how I looked. So just be brave and and that's I think would be the last thing that I would want to share is just I think it's so important that it can happen and be in anyone's life, regardless of what their circumstances are.
Yeah, things are not what they appear on the outside.
No.
Thank you for sharing your heart. I appreciate you.
Sure.
To our listeners, if something in today's episode resonated with you, let this be your sign to take that first step. Angie's journey started with a single meeting and a moment of reflection. It's never too late to begin. You can connect with Angie through her social platforms and explore the work she's doing to help others overcome obstacles and thrive. Her links are in the show notes. And as always, if this episode touched you or you know someone who needs to hear Angie's story, please share this episode. Conversations like these are lifelines for so many people. All right, mamas, that's it for today. Remember, you are stronger than you think. You're never alone, and you're doing the work not just for yourself, but for your kids too. Keep breaking those cycles, keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you back here next week. Woo! Take a breath, because this isn't just about pushing through or keeping your head down. This is a season of stepping up, of making moves, and the move is breaking the pattern. Choosing differently, learning to trust yourself enough to stop, recalibrate, and move with intention. Breaking cycles, not just for you, but for the generations that come after you. If this episode resonated, please send it to someone who needs it, because real conversations deserve to be heard. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps us reach more people who are ready to step it up. Listen, if you're not just here to survive, but to build something real, whether it's in your life, your leadership, or your business, let's connect. Whether you want to work with me, book me as a speaker, or learn how to build a brand that actually aligns with your purpose, head over to crystalcasey.com/links. Everything you need is there. And remember, you were never meant to just keep going. You were meant to break the cycle, build something real, and reclaim your power. Keep leading, keep creating, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday.